there's a 50% chance that I have the DNA strain or the gene for a genetic illness that has killed 24 members of my family. The emotions were the same, and I was able to tap into that.
In your performance, maybe make people who are also going through that feel better.
I will quote this right now, Phil. If Nero comes back for future parts of Remake,
okay,
I will better understand how to approach him as a character, and this interview will be a reason for it.
Wow. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm so honored. And does such a rich use of the visual arts inspire you in the choices?
Man. God, the more you think about it, the more the entire lore of Final Fantasy VII is just all these individual characters coming to terms with what they are, what they aren't, what they thought they were, and what they choose to be. Look at Sephiroth.
Yes.
His whole existence
identity.
Is, I thought I was this, I'm not this, and I can't handle not being what I thought I was, so this is who I'm going to become. You could do this 4-step process with pretty much any major character in Final Fantasy VII.
You heard it here, everybody. You guys were here when it was said. What do you think he would say to me to trash talk me if I was to try and fight Nero?
MMA. You're more of an MMF. It's blazing hot here in California, and every time I walk out and the sun's hidden behind, parts of the sky, I go, good to see you, Cloud.
Welcome back to the show. We got a very special show planned out for you today. If you don't know me, my name is Philip. I'm a filmmaker who grew up playing Final Fantasy. I love the cinematic language of these games. It got me into filmmaking, and I love to come full circle and now talk about it. You may have also seen such misadventures as my living as a warrior monk at the Shaolin Temple and getting beat up by warrior monks every day. And please make sure to subscribe to YouTube. We're almost at 10K subs here on my second channel. But today we have a very special show because we're joined by Sean Chiplock, who is an actor from Final Fantasy VII Remake, amongst a laundry list of other things that we're going to get into as well. And I'd like to give you a second to introduce yourself, Sean, and if you want to tell us a little bit about your work and what you do, but welcome.
My name is Sean Chiplock. I also go by Sonic Mega. I did not grow up playing any Final Fantasy game, but I did listen exclusively to the AOL radio video games section, which played a bunch of Final Fantasy music while I was doing my dailies in Neopets, and I've done that for a couple years, so I'd like to think I have as much knowledge of Final Fantasy based off that as Philip does. Maybe we'll have to do like a trivia game that I can lose soundly at and then claim you were cheating on sometime else. But I am a voice actor, gamer, Smash player. I've been living out in California almost a decade of my life at this point, which is very strange to me because I grew up exclusively in the Midwest, and the fact that I've almost spent 33% of my lifespan out here on the West Coast is unreal to me.
That's crazy.
I've been doing voiceover. Yeah, I've been doing voiceover full time for just under 10 years. And to say that I've been blessed with opportunity is a massive understatement. Just the amount of chances I've had to expand my portfolio over the last year, to be honest. I promise I'm not trying to brag by saying this, but during a time when a lot of people were struggling to hold a job because of the pandemic, I had to do a massive overhaul of my studio, and almost immediately afterwards, my workload pretty much doubled. So the fact that my industry allowed me to keep working through the pandemic is something I am grateful for every single day. But the other reason I love this career is because it gives me a chance to interact with communities, interact with folks like you. A lot of my time is spent listening to nobody but myself with these cans on in the studio. So getting to actually share the passion and celebrate the release of these games and the vivacity of the community with folks like you is what keeps me going week by week. So thank you for making the time for me, and thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. And as I said in the promotion of this, guys, it is an interactive interview. It's not just like watching it on YouTube, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat.
That's right.
Sean's got it open too. He's going to be looking if he sees anything, and then I'm
actually scoring every individual comment that's posted in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, and if any of you drop below a 5 average, I have permission to make the mods time you out.
Yes, it's a permaban. If you don't please Sean with your comment, you need to please Nero with your comment. But yeah, guys.
By the way, donating $50 raises it an automatic 10 points.
Yeah,
to Philip, not to me.
Either one. But yeah, we're going to have a dedicated section too, guys. If we miss any of your questions, don't worry. We will be looking just at chat at that point and taking them at the end. But that being said, let's just start out. Love your work as Nero. Absolutely
Thank you.
fantastic. And, really surprising because we never expected to see this character in FF7 remake. We love it so much, and it was just like,
That's what I
Nero's
heard.
in it, and it was just
Yeah.
such like a kind of a crazy surprise, and it just got better and better from there.
The common consensus that I've heard was that they were not
So
surprised
you
that
have
Nero
chosen
and Deep Ground in
death.
general ended up
Death?
in remake. They were
What do you
like,
mean
a
death?
lot of people theorized
What?
that
Death?
remake was going to find
Master
a way to
Jedi,
kind of
how are
make
you
Crisis
doing
Core and
today?
Dirge of Cerberus like canon, or at least more canon than they already were.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the surprise came from how soon the characters were brought in.
Yes.
Like a lot of them were like, I thought at least they would show up towards the end of part 2, maybe middle of part 3, not as a DLC add-on at the end of part 1. So
Yeah, that's what we all thought, and it was such a cool surprise. But that's one of the strengths that's been we've seen so much world building in this game already, and to bring in that sort of dark underbelly of the Shinra Corporation was such a cool choice, I thought. And what better character than Nero kind of show the depth of that. But yeah, anyway,
right.
we absolutely love your work on it, and so FF7R storytelling has been a standout for us like since the beginning. As a filmmaker myself, can't help but notice the level that is operating on, such as like very sophisticated down to the lensing and the shot selection, the lighting, and the storyboarding. It's very high compared to a lot of projects. Not to say they're worse or better. It's just they're operating on a level that's incredibly cinematic.
I seem to recall, as part of it being a love letter to the community, at some part of an interview, and I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing very much so, but the development team and the creators had said, obviously we were working within the limitations of the game engine back when we first made Final Fantasy VII, but we saw a remake as our chance to tell the story the way it looked in our heads, I imagine everyone who grew up gaming on Final Fantasy VII, sure, you saw the blocky characters and you saw
Yeah.
the pre-rendered cutscenes, but when you remember the game, you probably remembered it in much higher fidelity. You thought about all the different angles, you thought about what the world might look like, and this was their chance to say, hey, now we have the budget, now we have the technology, why don't we take that world that we created in our heads and make it playable? And that's what I really like about it. You can tell that
Agreed.
there's so much love and passion dripping from it. The same people that said, I can't figure out what the hell is going on during the Nero fight because there's so much going on, are also going, but I wouldn't remove any of the effects because
Yes.
this is what I imagine it would look like when you're actually fighting against him.
Precisely. And we talked about that on Schrodinger's Baby Seals show, who's actually in the chat now. Great fellow creator. You should definitely check out. And we said, it went from this feeling of, oh, this is so cool. Like, look in there, it's fun, it's cool, it's epic. And then it was like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. Like this is wrong. Like it felt so intense and
Yep.
so scary. And it's like this horror vibe, which again, they're just tapping into all these different areas. And what better character, to showcase that? So
Absolutely.
very, very fun. But yeah, again, super cinematic. For example, there's a shot where they do this kind of 10 to 15 millimeter focal length, which gives this distortion on the lens. It's a very wide lens. It's a very wide angle. It almost makes Nero look kind of distorted and everything. It's stuff they're using in Hollywood, like some of the best DPs out there and everything. And it's so cool to see a video game do this. It's one of the reasons I've always loved Final Fantasy, over that subconscious understanding of something. But how does it compare to the other projects you've worked on as far as the cinematic language, and does such a rich use of the visual arts inspire you in
Oh,
the
man.
choices?
I would definitely say Final Fantasy VII is up there in terms of the visual quality being one of the most beautiful of the games that I've recorded on. And that's not to knock on any of the other stuff I've worked on. Like, for example,
course, yeah.
I'm really proud of my work on ReZero and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but those are, of course, in an anime style. But that style works for that type of show. Like, if JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was hyper realistic to the degree that Final Fantasy VII was, I think it would actually detract from the kind of serious craziness that the series has. A good example being, they said deliberately that with Final Fantasy VII Remake, they wanted to go for a more grounded, realistic performance, which
Right.
isn't going to work with something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Of course.
In terms of video game project, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't had a lot of chances to play the games that I've voiced in recently. My theory on that is that it was probably easier to focus on glowing up the whole game when you have the foundation to begin with. You look at something like Astral Chain, which I would say is comparable in terms of visual quality, but you have to realize that they had all these other aspects that they needed to focus on with a game like Astral Chain. There was the story, there was the side quests, there was the character designs. They had to make a game.
Right.
Even with something with Persona 5, which I'm sure everyone would agree was a visual masterpiece.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, part of what helped is that they were able to streamline it. They had the foundation of what they were working off of Persona 4. They said, okay, let's keep the parts that have done well, and let's see what parts we can improve on. Well, it was the same with Final Fantasy VII. They said, the story is great, or at least where we want to take the story, we have a world, we have lore that already exists. The music is already fantastic, so what else can we improve on? Like, what were we previously held back by that we can now make a focal point? And so it makes perfect sense that they would put a lot of focus into the quality, because anyone could come in and say, yep, those are the same characters I know. Yep, that's the same music I know. Yep, that's the same story beats that I know. But if you come in from a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 game?
Dirge of Cerberus was the original was a PlayStation 1.
A PlayStation 1?
Yeah.
You come from a PlayStation 1 game to PS4, PS5.
Oh, that's insane.
And you go, okay, what are all the things that the PS1 could not do that we can now do?
Yeah.
Let's do them. Because not only does that help you market the console and its capabilities, but that helps you market the game. It's, here's something you can get from this that you can't get from the original game.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I agree. That's what we were saying, like, for the artist, going back to something like that, it's got to be just such a dream. Can you imagine 23 years later with all those limitations? Now you have like the PS5 and everything. It's just got to be a toy box for that.
I can sort of imagine it, but not in the same way you're thinking. Like for me, the big full circle moment was actually a different Final Fantasy game, which was Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Which
I love that game.
A remaster. Yeah, I got a remaster in Switch about a year ago.
Yeah.
That was one of, whenever I talked about my childhood and growing up, there were two games that I always played at least once a week, and it was either Crystal Chronicles or Legend of Mana.
Oh, my God.
You can imagine how I feel knowing that now both of them got a remaster.
I was going to say both. Yeah. That's great.
But while Legend of Mana didn't get voices, Crystal Chronicles did.
Right.
And as one of the three voices that I play in that game, I voice Stiltskin, the guide Moogle who is with you like every step of the storyway. To have that experience of literally growing up with this game and now have it be a permanent part of my legacy. Like, I am the English voice of this character in this game.
So awesome.
I can't even... The only other time that it rivaled was when I got to announce that I was the Great Deku Tree in Breath of the Wild. Because I was a kid, okay? I was at the Toys R Us demo kiosk playing Ocarina of Time while my parents were shopping, meeting the Great Deku Tree for the first time, and I still can't process...
That's you.
That's me.
Yeah.
That is me.
That's amazing. I didn't know that was you. You're the Great Deku Tree?
It is.
That's amazing. Wow, what a range, guys. He's the Great Deku Tree. And Rivali? Amazing.
And Rivali and Teba.
That's awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what a beautiful thing. Those memories. I mean, I agree. Growing up playing those games, and Crystal Chronicles, by the way, is a great game for you guys who haven't played it. It's definitely a little underrated.
I don't know how the online community is going to do it now that the game's been out a year. It was definitely a flash in the pan type of thing, and I knew that from the beginning. But it is still worth playing solo.
Absolutely. One of the reasons I've been seeing the praise, there's a lot of show, don't tell type storytelling in Final Fantasy, which I believe is the mark of confidence in writing and narrative. I notice a lot of what Nero is thinking is left unsaid, and he doesn't really break off into these vaunted villain speeches and stuff, yet we can almost infer more from that subtlety, and our imagination fills in the gaps. How did you manage to deliver us such rich lines that grounded this character with only so few words?
I have to give a lot of thanks to my director for that, because prior to the director leading me in the direction that they wanted, you know, my only source of reference was Dirge of Cerberus, where Nero is quite a bit less subtle about his mannerisms and his intentions.
Right.
But what you mentioned, this whole less is more, you know, you bring up a good point where something else they could do with the remake that they couldn't do with the PS1 is telling through expressions rather than words. Like, think of all the times that Cloud like shot someone a glance and you were like, oh, he is so he's so done with them right now, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
But he didn't even say a single word.
Yeah.
But the way that played with Nero is rather than going with, oh, he's insane, you know, he's been possessed by the darkness, they were definitely going for more of an angle of, no. Nero embraces the darkness, and he is so confident in his control over it. That's why he doesn't feel the need to let on. Like, he's not going to laugh maniacally and say, I'm going to destroy you. He's going to just chuckle to himself and go, let's play. You know, like
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
If a man who has his mouth covered and whose eyes you can barely see whispers into your head through a force you can't, like, cognitive, you have no awareness of,
I'm
you
out.
suddenly hear in your head, let's play, and you see him walking towards you, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
It's like, I'm
You're
out.
gone.
Yeah. No, it's great. And that's what I
Like-
said to, again, on Baby Seal Stream. We had a great talk about it. And what I said to him was, you know, when Yuffie actually runs into Nero at first, she's kind of like, aren't those your comrades? You know, what are you doing to them? Aren't you on the same team? And notice he doesn't go into like a huge speech like Deep Ground is an underground Shinra research. He doesn't say anything. He
Right.
just says, like, you don't understand. I'm going to kill you pretty much. And it's so
Right.
good because for the new players who don't know Dirge of Cerberus, you get that. You're just like, oh, there's a whole dark world here that we don't understand. And that's what matters for the character. So I think it's great. I think it's really well
And
done.
wait, how are we on spoilers for like end of Intergrade? Should
Oh,
we
you can
avoid
go.
talking about?
You can go spoiler crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is the 5-second warning for
Yeah.
anyone that's in chat that would not like spoilers.
Run!
Okay, but also when he stabs Sonon through the back, he I don't even remember if he says anything.
He's just enjoying himself.
He just leans in. He just leans in like, you can hear, but soon you won't be. Like, he doesn't even say anything, and it's so crazy.
It really is. Yeah, it's so well done. And again, a lot of that goes from that same thing. Less is more. But
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No, I mean, so to answer your question more succinctly, it was a big point because if I recall, the Japanese did play that up a little bit more.
Oh,
But
really?
They were always pushing me back down. They said they want to go grounded, they want to go more realistic. You know, control it. And as you can tell, I'm a very energetic individual. So for me, I do much better when I'm allowed to go over the top.
Yeah.
But it was a good challenge. I always appreciate a good challenge and a chance to expand my skill set. But yeah, it. I think it kind of helped the character in the end because when you've got someone like me who is barely keeping it under wraps, it kind of works for a character like Nero who is barely keeping himself from going as far as he would like to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and you can tell. I think it actually played to your advantage in there because you can tell that there's a lot of power in your voice. So you can just hear that even when you speak quietly. But then in those moments during the fight, for example, when you're like kind of giving more like battle sounds and everything, you can hear some of that power, and it's kind of scary. It's
Yeah,
like,
those were the lines where I only needed 1 or 2 takes.
Yeah. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're good there. Yeah.
I think there was one part where he does like a 7-second laugh that like crosses 3 different octaves or something like that.
Oh, that's
and
great.
you know, just prior to that, we had done like a line where I needed to do like 7 retakes because I couldn't quite get the nuance that they wanted. But that 7-second maniacal laugh, we were done in 1 take. Like, we just had it.
That's great. Yeah, that seems like the hard part, but you're like, yep, we got it. That's amazing. Oh, Austin's in the chat, but he just left because he didn't want to get spoiled. But thank you, Austin.
Yeah.
We love you, buddy.
Well, he said, I don't want spoilers, but I'm not leaving because I love you all. So
Oh, that's what he said. I thought he was leaving. What a beast.
No.
Well, thanks for being
Ooh,
here,
he
Austin.
voices Roche, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Austin brings it as the
does.
pretty-haired motorcycle rival to Cloud, and you can just tell the passion is dripping from every line read that guy does in the game.
It is.
I admire Austin so much for his ability to play grounded characters, and he's a big inspiration for me.
Amazing. No, me too. As I was saying, he's been helping me with my voice reel and giving me a lot of advice, and it's been so much fun. We had him on the channel, and he actually did our follower notification. So it's Roche's voice every time, you know, welcome to the Philosophers. And Austin has immortalized here. But yeah, we love you, Austin. No worries. So let's move on a little bit. Nero is a very dark character just in general. There's a lot of darkness about him, not just literally, right? Who you took, it took you to a very intense place, I can imagine. A lot of actors talk about this. When playing such extreme subject matter, it's kind of like very disturbing. Does it drain you at all as an actor to go to those places, or are you kind of accustomed to it from other parts? Like, how did it feel to do that?
It's an interesting question to answer because myself personally, I feel like I actually get energized from playing characters that I get to go a little overboard with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have had times where sorry, I'm gonna get water burps because I'm talking while hydrating so much.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, drink up.
I have had times where I was completely drained by the end of a session, but it typically only happens in one of two cases. If I have had to scream nonstop, and that's just because it wears, your lungs are
Yeah.
muscles, your throat is a muscle, it's going to get tired, no
Mm-hmm.
different than if you were doing Kegels for 30 minutes straight or wall sits or stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I have had to do something like crying or some sort of excess of emotion, because the body naturally wants to be in homeostasis, it wants to be in a state of calm. So if I have
Right.
to force it into an extreme emotion for an extended period of time, I'm going to be emotionally exhausted at the end of that session.
That makes sense.
But in
Yeah.
terms of just playing characters in general, I live for it. Like I always enjoy. There was a project the other day where I played a time wizard, and I got to make all of these stupid jokes about like controlling the flow of time. Saying this will only take a second or something like that. And I love getting to embody those characters and those personalities and experience all of these states of being that can't happen in real life. And so for me, that's just rejuvenating. If I go too long without voice acting, I go stir crazy. Like the last time I had a downtime from VO because of the pandemic, that's what started me streaming, was because I got so sick of sitting around the house that I was just like, I gotta do something. I gotta do something that lets me talk to people and voice act characters.
That's beautiful. And like a true artist, kind of like lives for the craft. And with that, we got a raid from Unaleska for 175 people. Welcome everybody.
Holy crap!
That's
okay.
crazy.
So real talk. This is gonna make people. I need F's in chat for this. The very first time I played Final Fantasy X, I got up to the Unaleska fight.
Oh no!
And I could not figure out. I was young enough that I didn't understand, like, you were either supposed to let them get zombified or what. But I was unable to beat the Unaleska fight. And eventually, I wouldn't say I rage quit, but, like, I moved on to other stuff, and I never ended up coming back. I did not know how close I was to beating the game.
So close.
When I stopped at Unaleska.
She's so close to the end, yes.
I had no idea.
Amazing.
So,
well, there you go, guys. Hey, that is some proof of knowledge of Final Fantasy from Sean here. He has played FF10.
And by the way, I'm of the camp that says, who's the guy who voices Tidus? Was it
James Arnold Taylor?
James Arnold Taylor.
Yeah.
James Arnold Taylor did exactly what he was supposed to do during the fake laughter scene.
Oh, it's genius. I think it's genius.
The whole point is that the laughter sounds so forced and ridiculous
Yeah.
that it makes you laugh because it sounds so silly. That was the point of the scene.
Yeah, he's also depressed and enraged and upset. He wants to yell and stuff in the scene. He's not trying to do like a normal laugh. It's a lot of people just watch it out of context and they're like, oh, is he trying to sound like a real laugh? No, that's the point.
No, because literally after he gets Yuna to do the fake laughter with him, they both pause, they look at each other, and then they laugh for real.
Yeah.
So clearly the guy knows how to laugh for real.
Totally.
He's not a bad actor.
Yeah, it's the classic like taken out of context, internet thing. And then it shows the rest of the party in the background looking like, what are these freaks doing right now? It shows how ridiculous it is, but yeah, that's all right. Hear it from Sean, a actor himself. All right, he knows these things. Put it in the books, but okay. So, Sean. By the way, welcome again, everybody. Thanks so much for all the follows. It's a pleasure to have you. If you guys aren't familiar with Sean's work, he is the voice of Nero in FF7, Rivali, and Zelda, to name two of his biggest vaunted projects, and a ton of stuff besides that he was talking about earlier. Feel free to give us questions. And again, Sean, if you see anything, hop right on it. We will be taking them later.
I'm browsing. I'm seeing a whole lot of people agreeing with me, which good. It means you are people of good taste.
Yes, agreed. I think it's one of the saddest scenes in the series. This is funny because somebody just did the tightest laugh bit alert. That's really funny. Thank you so much. Okay, so one of the things I've done, Sean, I mentioned it briefly earlier. I've lived as a warrior monk at the Shaolin Temple in China as a Buddhist warrior monk, and I also make fight scenes of my own. If I was to challenge Nero in FF7 universe, what do you think he would say to me to trash talk me if I was to try and fight Nero?
To trash talk you.
Yeah.
Would this be before the fight actually starts, in the middle of the fight, or after he's completely thrashed you?
Oh boy, whichever you think would be the most entertaining.
Oh, I want it to be good. I want this to be a good roast. Okay.
Please go crazy. We'll put it as a sound alert on the channel or something.
Oh my god. I gotta think about this. So you would be pure physical fighting, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I've got one for after the fight.
Okay.
You would go, MMA. You're more of an MMF.
That's great. That's great.
Right?
Roasted.
Let's see.
Oh my god, thank you. You got a hype train too, and you subbed. Thank you so much.
Before the fight begins, he'd be like, "This isn't what they meant when they said return to monkey." All right, now we need one for the middle of the fight.
Yeah, I'll give you something to work on. How about this? Well, I'll give you something to work with. Let's see. I would say, while you played in Deep Ground, I studied the blade.
Sounds like you need summer classes.
Great. Oh, you are too much, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll definitely put those as, people can trash talk me as I'm losing in a game or something. That's great. Thank you so much for all the bits, everybody. We got a hype train going. You guys are wild. Okay, next question. Thank you so much for that. Nero and Vice may be probably the two. You talked about a bit about it earlier. Like in Dirge of Cerberus, they were larger than life, like big characters, very, very expressive and everything, right? They have two larger presences, probably in all of FF7 universe and lore. Okay. Yet they feel so believable and grounded here, thanks to you and Damon's performances. So what are some of the choices you made in the booth to ground such otherworldly powers and lines? How does the director help you achieve that?
I definitely relied, like I said, very heavily on the director to help ground me, because I tended, it was the philosophy that I go by is it's always easier to go over and then, notch it back down than it is to go too low and have to bring it back up. So almost all the time I was erring on the side of doing too much and then having to get pulled back.
I like that.
So that's really what it was for me at the end of the day was just tossing it out there, seeing where it stuck, and then making adjustments accordingly until we found just that right level. And sometimes it was a matter of having it surrounded. The first time's a little bit too much, second time's a little bit too little, and then you get that sweet spot right in the middle and you're good to go. I would say Damon probably had an easier time, because I recall from the interviews that he had, he said, I just threw away what Vice was in Dirge of Cerberus. I just started from scratch and I built him from the ground up.
I like that.
And the fact that I wasn't sure yet if I needed to use Nero from Dirge of Cerberus as a reference or from Crisis Core meant that I kind of started a little bit higher than I should have. But once I leaned into more of the character aspect of, he doesn't need to prove himself. The reason why he's so dangerous is because he's so calm. That kind of helped me set my foundation lower and start from a place that was more, I should say, internalized rather than external, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Love that.
If Hojo's a character that's very external, Nero is a character that's very internal in terms of his expressions.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love that, because you can see this is why we kind of love to have these conversations. You can deconstruct it, and then once we hear about your choices, it just when we replay it, we get that other context. We get that next level, and even if you're not into the arts yourself, it's just so cool to get that. It's kind of like when you watch the. Do you guys ever watch like the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes extra DVDs and then go back and watch it? It just gives such an appreciation for everything, I find. And let me know if you guys agree. But awesome, great answer. Let's move on. Music has always been a part of Final Fantasy, right? And this chapter is no different, with Nero himself having such a legendary pieces of music, especially for his, his 3 to 4 stage boss battles, incredible songs that I was not expecting at all. And were you able
Right.
to hear any? I assume not, but were you able to hear any of these pieces
I
to inspire
I
you?
actually I actually complained about it when I was streaming the game. I didn't complain about the music,
No
but
way.
I complained about the fact that I was so focused on trying to not die during the boss fights that all of the other sounds were just whoosh over my head. Like I couldn't focus in and listen to it.
Hmm.
So it might be a case where I have to go back and like buy the soundtrack and just like line up what music was to what scene, because I was, like I said, I was so busy trying to not die that all of the symphonic like
Grandeur.
build ups and all of the clashes and the drops just all became one giant beautiful mess in my brain.
No, no, absolutely. And that I always think that's the mark of a really impressive soundtrack is when you're playing a tough boss battle like that, but you still can be, oh, this music's amazing. Because you're so busy doing
For
it and
sure.
everything. But yeah,
For sure.
please give it a listen. It is like magnificent. The stuff that there's several stages of it where it actually adds to the cinematic language because it starts out in the beginning a little bit more epic, I would say, and then it goes to this dark, scary place with like this kind of almost reminiscent of like Bloodborne or Dark Souls sound, and it's like, oh, what's happening? I
Right.
gotta get out of here. Which is what happens to the characters, right? We gotta. It goes from let's beat this guy to Sonon going. So this is a like try to survive scenario.
One thing I always really like when games do this is when the music, I don't know what the term is, you might know it better than me, when the aural sound of the music changes based on your character's condition. Like if they're underwater, then it will sound a little muffled. If
Oh,
they're like in if they're in critical health, like it will start to pulse.
yeah, I
Like
love
it
that.
kind of like it kind of muffles itself out around the
Hmm.
edges of the screen. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's another just taking advantage of the medium of gaming and making it more immersive. Which you can't do that in a movie, right? Because everybody has different experience when they're playing a game. They might not get hit. Someone's really good, so they wouldn't experience
Didn't
that. And I think that's what's
Final
so
Fantasy
cool.
also did it. They also did it where like there was a difference in the music beats between when you're just normally fighting and when they're staggered, right? Like when they were staggered, it would get more intense,
Yeah, I mean,
and it
depending
would
on the
just
boss fight, for sure. Yeah, you would take their health down to a certain degree, and I think there's some boss fights in just Seven Remake where there's 3 or 4 or 5 stages of the song that just keeps evolving and keeps evolving. And then there'll be like later in the game, there's a certain song where it starts the same, but then there's a second section to it. It's insane.
right.
It's so cool.
Also, Austin says the term is channel fading. So
Oh, there you go. There you go, Austin. Thank you. But yeah, we love that sort of thing. And again, just Final Fantasy has always inspired me in that way. That they're being creative with the medium. And FF7 OG, we've said this a lot at this point between us, creators here who talk about it a lot. It really was the first AAA game, FF7 for the PS1. It was trying to tell like a cinematic story. It had these cutscenes and everything on that big scale, that big epic scale. And after that is when you started to get all these games like Metal Gear Solid, etc., which
right.
let's tell a story. Let's tell like a film story. You didn't have that before FF7.
I'm pretty sure with Metal Gear, it's not let's tell a story. Metal Gear is more of let's rewrite an entire world. Like
Yeah, it's true.
let's create a separate reality.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. We had a question from Crystal, who's another awesome streamer. Says, could if you could voice another character in FF7, who would it be? Tough question.
So, my initial response is always Hojo, just because
Oh,
I
that'd be fun.
love. I mean, I think the guy who played him did a perfect job of not making him campy gross. They made him realistic.
Agree
gross, and that's
completely.
something
Yep.
that's something that I still need to work on, is how to play characters that are gross or evil without making them obviously so. So it's one of those cases where it's like, I don't know if I'd be the best fit for it. I would just like to try it. But outside of that, okay, I know most of these most of the characters by now, but because I'm put on the spot, I'm like forgetting all of them.
Oh,
So I'm
please,
going
yeah, take a look at the
quick list.
cast. As you look at that though, I agree, Hojo. Like they nailed it with it was slimy and disgusting. It wasn't like I'm evil. It was so uncomfortable, Hojo.
Oh, Reno, Reno.
Oh yeah, Reno. He's great.
Yeah,
He's
no, ever since I saw him in Advent Children, like that was definitely a case where he's like, man, I really want to voice him. He's so hot. Anyway,
Yeah, he's got the open shirt and everything. I mean, come on. He would be a great character. Yeah, absolutely, Crystal.
All
So,
right.
next question. Nero is a quiet man, and yet he has so much pain. And he has moments of exclamation and screaming and agony. Like when he says, one that stood out to me, I was playing, I was like, oh my God, it just stood out. It hurts so much, brother. It hurts so much
Right.
while fighting. For such a wide range of emotions, was it difficult to decide where to unleash some vocal power, where to rein it in? But I think you already said the director had a heavy hand in that,
Right.
right?
It was. I cherished the moments where I was allowed to go a little bit bigger.
Mm,
I want to say what helped me determine is looking at the intent behind the line. Like,
yeah.
was he saying it because he's amused by this pathetic attempt from the player? Is he saying it because he's feeling things that he typically doesn't feel when he's chained up for God knows how long at a time?
Yeah.
It's again, it's the internal versus external. Is he saying it so that the other person hears him, or is he saying it so that he hears himself?
Right.
And that can impact how he chooses to say the line as well.
Absolutely. Love that. What do we have from chat here? Sephiroth says, question for Sean. Not the real Sephiroth, the chat Sephiroth. Among your large portfolio of voice characters, who do you find you relate to the most, and which characters among the ones you've voiced do you think will vibe and befriend each other? That's a good question.
The ones that I relate to the most, I promise this isn't a cop out, but I've always said Subaru is identifies a lot with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because a lot of scenes where I was probably at my best that I've mentioned to people are also scenes where I wasn't really acting. So, for example, this might get a little heavy, so I'm just giving trigger warning to people in chat.
Of course.
His whole breakdown to Rem in episode 18, I have had that conversation with my wife before where I said, why did you bother to marry someone like me? You know, eventually you're going to realize that I keep myself entertained through a lot of simple things. I don't go out very often. You know, I'm content with where I am in life, and you're going to find that boring, and you're going to discover someone who's more entertaining and more knows how to live life better than me. And so why waste your time with me now when you could just cut it now and find someone better? The very first time that he is about to experience return by death, and he's freaking out about the concept of dying, I was thinking about the fact that, there's a 50% chance that I have the DNA strain or the gene for a genetic illness that has killed 24 members of my family. And Lou Gehrig's disease, for those of you wondering. And if I have it and it activates, that's it. Game over. There's no cure. There's no treatment. There's no staving it off. I just die in about a year after it starts. And so I used that very real fear that I've often suppressed to be like, okay, well, if that happened to me, how would I feel in that moment, knowing that it was going to happen? And so there is a lot that I've gone through with Subaru, where even if I didn't one for one match the situation that he's been in, that there has been a similar life situation where the emotions were the same, and I was able to tap into that. And that's part of what makes me so proud about my performance as the character, is because he is all over the place compared to a lot of protagonists. And I knew from the get-go that I could bring it the way I needed to for him, and it paid off. And so I look back on Subaru, and I look back on this series that so many people respect as being one of the best anime of its time. And I go, I'm so glad that I could take even the painful parts of my life and make them into something positive.
That's beautiful. I'm so sorry to go through that. And I think the first thing that comes to mind when I hear something like that, Sean, is, it's so, when we go through these things, you kind of wonder, like, why is the question that's come up for me a lot. It's like, why? Like, why does this have? There's no reason. But then, my friend Spencer has this as a tattoo in Chinese, and it says, how do you know it's not a blessing? So for something like this, like, you're going through so much pain, but then you're able to, in your performance, maybe make people who are also going through that feel better and kind of help.
Are you okay with
people.
swearing on this?
Absolutely.
I look at it as, what better a way to say fuck you to something like Lou Gehrig's disease than to say, I'm going to take what you think is making my quality of life worse and use it to make my quality of life better by getting paid or by getting a role or by building my portfolio. Like, you don't control me. I control how much you control me.
Yeah. It's like classic kind of, in a sort of Final Fantasy way, like, take control of your destiny, and fight it, do with it what you can. And again, I think for me, that's really the mark of art, I think, in everything for me, is that, we see ourselves in the story. That's really all any story is. You can relate a good story. You relate to the characters. We talked about this with Tifa's my favorite character. I can relate to her a lot and the struggles she goes through and everything. But I mean, there you go. How many people have probably seen this performance? And from Sean's pain, he was able to, in almost like a method sort of way, put those feelings into it. And look,
that's why I identify with Sephiroth. He has his mother's gone. He's very attractive. His sword is abnormally large.
That was good.
every time I walk out, it's blazing hot here in California, and every time I walk out and the sun's hidden behind, parts of the sky, I go, "Good to see you, Cloud."
That's good. That's good. Oh my God, he's got one-liners for days, guys. He's got them all night. Oh, that's mad funny. But no, again, beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. And again, when you talk about legacy and stuff, that's what art is to me. It really is. So thank you for sharing. I know it's hard to talk about. People are loving that in the chat. That's great. Okay, so looking back at the same line, it hurts so much, brother. Nero is. You kind of hinted at this. Nero is almost addressing Vice as if he's in his head, or perhaps it's some sort of deity. In the way that a person would in our world. What do you think Nero's worldview is? And do you think about that sort of backstory when bringing this powerful yet sad man to life?
I apologize for losing my cred ahead of time, but I'm going to ask, do Nero and Vice have any sort of connection in terms of their DNA? Like, are they twins? Were they made from the same strand of anything? Or are they two completely separate entities?
I don't know. I think Baby Seal can answer that in 1 second in the chat. I don't know if we ever get a hard confirmation on that. It might be kind of like a brother, as in maybe they fought a lot together, so they call themselves brother. Right. I don't actually know.
Because I don't want to spout a bunch of armchair psychology and then end up being dead wrong. So I'm going to wait until chat says something.
No, please, and feel free to go on what you think. But yeah, I don't think that's ever confirmed.
They are basically the same person. They are essentially twins. Okay. Well, then my theory is, we hear all these cases about, like, in the real world of how, like, fraternal twins or I forget what the term is for twins that are actually literally from the same egg, are able to have the same personality or think the same thoughts or just feel like they have some sort of psychic connection with each other. And we all know that JRPGs love playing up on tropes that happen in real life, but, like, taking them to the nth degree. So I would not be surprised if the whole fact that they are basically the same person means that, whether it's true or not, Nero feels as though he has a mental one-to-one connection with Vice. Like, he can think thoughts and Vice will hear them. And that's kind of what causes him to have such reverence for his brother is, there's no part of me that you don't know. Everything that I think, you also think. Everything that I do, you also do. I cannot exist without you. Some people would call that dependency. Some people would call that reverence. Like, what at the end of the day, what is the difference between a person who worships their superior and a person who worships a god? So,
it's a good question. It's a fine question, but no, it's a good spin on it. What do you guys think in chat too? Dead on depiction of their dynamics, says Baby Seal. He's one of the lore experts here in our community. So there you go. Awesome.
Can you tell I'm someone who'd never read the book but got really good at analyzing the Cliff's notes before the exam?
That's a good skill, though. That's a good skill. All right, so more on this sort of actual worldview and stuff. When I spoke to Darren DePaul, who I'm sure you know, about his amazing performance, amazing performance as Arden in FF15. He told me when playing a villain, and he came from a theater background, so he says he believes that every villain is the hero of their own story, and that's how he informed his performance. How do you think Nero thinks of himself and his brother Vice, like as heroes? What do you think? Does he accept the darkness in that way as kind of evil? What do you think about it?
This is going way out there. Like, I could be dead wrong on this at this point.
Please.
Humans are incredibly resilient. We lose limbs that would kill other animals, and we, cauterize them and keep going. We chase prey down until it literally dies from exhaustion, and then we carry it all the way back with us. I would not be surprised if Nero kind of saw his existence as almost either a challenge or a defiance or a
Mm.
proof of how strong he is. This again, this is going to get a little dark, but I kind of want to bring people to this place so that we can start to think like Nero does. All right,
Yeah, please.
when you think of something like a terrorist attack or something that happens unexpectedly and claims lives, or something like COVID. Fuck it, let's look at COVID. I'm sure we've all had those cases where we have like thoughts of what if, where we're like,
Right.
if this were to happen, what would my plan of action be? How would I survive this? And we all want to think in the back of our heads, I would survive this. I would be prepared enough. I would know how to get through this. And even if we just touch on the fact that at the end of the day, the very fact that we lose people to natural disasters means there are some people who don't make it out. Well, when you're getting experimented on by the Shinra Corporation that either wants to make you into their super soldier or make you into a monster with no comprehension of your identity, basically the idea is you're probably going to die, and if you don't die, you're probably going to become something that we can use for our purposes. You know, like
Yeah.
your life as you know it is done. It's over. Just get used to it. And I can see Nero being the kind of person to say, no, I am not going to lose who I am. I may change, but I'm not going to lose myself. And so this whole idea that he controls the darkness and has become unstable and can't be trusted and destroys his creators, on the one hand, we look at it as, oh my God, he's gone feral. You know, he's become a monster. You know, he's lost all sense of himself. No, the whole point is that he controls the darkness, not Shinra.
That's
So
a good
what
point.
we see as a man going crazy is really a man who refused to give in. And Shinra did this to themselves. The fact them experimenting on him is what led to him gaining access to those abilities. All he had to do was not fail, and he didn't.
That's a good
And
point.
now you've got the Nero that you have to deal with because you failed to do what you wanted to do to him.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's true because I mean, him and Vice are pretty much the result of like an extreme survival of the fittest scenario, right? It's kind of what Deep Ground is. So it's so cool that he's
I
right. I mean,
mean,
he has control of
I
it.
mean,
It's
just
not
think
so.
about it. How do we think of Vice and Nero? We don't think of them as members of Shinra or like operators of Deep Ground answering to a higher up. We know them as Vice and Nero. They are two completely separate, dangerous individuals in their own right. And that's partially because it feels like they have agency over their actions, and that's what makes them such a big threat.
Yeah, very true. And it's cool because there's a lot of like soldiers who kind of just answer to Shinra and stuff. We're gonna actually talk about this in a second, kind of. But yeah, they have an awful lot of power, and even though they kind of answer to certain people, it's quite interesting. Baby Seal says, for someone that doesn't know the lore behind Nero, you sure know the heck out of what makes Nero tick. Hey, that's the mark of a good actor, right?
This is why I say, if for any of you there that are going to college, if you have the chance to major or minor in psychology, even if you just throw on psychology as like an extra minor for like 5, 6 extra classes, do it. Because I majored in film video media studies and I minored in Japanese and psychology. And I genuinely feel like my psychology minor taught me more that I've retained than anything else I learned while I was at college.
Yeah, that's very important. So I would agree. I'd
If
say,
you want to become an actor and you understand how people think and how people operate, not only will that help you develop better working relationships with the people that you have to network with, whether it's Philip or my client or my director or someone else, it will also help you immensely with, even if you don't get it right, just coming up with sound ideas as to why a character does the things that they do, which will lead to more genuine performances overall.
yeah, I agree completely. Great interview. Thank you, Aaliyah. Awesome, awesome. All right, so next question. You've done many characters in your career so far with a wide range of personalities. Where do you rank Nero as far as being interesting and engaging character, and also where would you rank him as far as difficulty of the part?
This is hard because I need to see more of Remake before I can make that decision. You know, Yellow
True.
Alchemist says you're actually selling me on the idea that Nero and Vice could actually work as characters. They just didn't work in Dirge. Your ideas can make them work in Remake. And I promise I'm not tooting my own horn, but I agree, because now if we look at them as characters, like in the sense of they won against a system that wanted them to fail so it could use them for their own devices, this all ties back into the whole idea of, how much of yourself can you lose before you're not yourself anymore? Or can you lose who you were but still be yourself in a new light? And that applies to Cloud when you know about what his actual identity is. That applies to Aerith when you think about what Hojo wanted to use her for.
Ugh, yeah.
That applies to Red 13. Like, God, the more you think about it, the more the entire lore of Final Fantasy VII is just all these individual characters coming to terms with what they are, what they aren't, what they thought they were, and what they choose to be. Like, holy shit. Like, man,
Wow.
I'm having an Einstein. Look at Sephiroth.
Yes.
His whole existence
Identity.
is, I thought I was this, I'm not this, and I can't handle not being what I thought I was, so this is who I'm going to become. You could do this 4-step process with pretty much any major character in Final Fantasy VII. Who do they think they are? Who are they actually? How do they respond to that? And what are they going to become as a result of that?
You heard it here, everybody. Sean Chiplock. That's awesome. I agree completely. Every single character struggles with that in their own way. Makes sense considering the themes. Yeah.
You need to link me to this interview after it's live, because I'm going to send this to my friend who is dead to rights crazy about FF7.
Yes.
And I want to see how she responds to it. I
Please.
swear to God, that's the smartest thing I've said all year at this point.
Wow, I'm honored. It was here. You guys were here when it was said. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so that's a whole lot. I agree completely. Yeah, we could talk about that all night.
I will quote this right now, Phil. If Nero comes back for future parts of Remake,
Okay.
I will better understand how to approach him as a character, and this interview will be a reason for it.
Wow. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm so honored. That's what we love to talk about, everybody. Thank you so much, Sean. That's awesome. Glad to get you thinking about the characters and stuff. I was here. Clap, says Card. Yeah.
Now we need to get the shirts. Hashtag I was here with the smiling Phil.
Exactly.
And Nero kind of looming in the background.
Yeah, about to stab me or something.
Like literally just have him like smiling, and then Nero's doing like the big grabby hands.
Perfect. It's perfect. Thank you for making Remake better, Phil. You're welcome. That's why I'm here. I do what I can. Alchemist says, Sean, how was the audition for Nero? Did you know you were auditioning? Probably not, I assume.
I did know. I believe,
oh my God.
even if it was codenamed, I'm pretty sure they might have included like images that showed the base character. Also, the fact that one of the lines had the word Vice, which at that point,
Oh yeah, you know what's going on, yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
So I was able to put 2 and 2 together. Like I said, I had used his performance in I forget whether they included a Japanese reference. I don't remember. But I either referenced the Japanese audio that they included, or I referenced his performance in Dirge of Cerberus. So, I was able to play off of that. I'm basing it on how this character sounded back then.
Right.
Was it difficult? I wouldn't say it was, just because, I very typically have fun with characters that tend to be a little wispier and higher in pitch. And that sound like something is wrong with them. I've done that before. It's pretty easy for me. So probably the only difficulty was in the sense of not doubting myself too much, because I knew what it was for, and it can be very, very easy to overanalyze every aspect of your performance. But other than that, it was just fun. I just had fun with it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I like about your performances. We can tell that you're enjoying yourself. And
yeah, part of that is fear. Because no, for real, because when so a big part of who I am. I'm sorry if I keep interrupting you too much. You can stop me.
No, please, yeah. Like I said, just go for it. We're having fun.
A big part of what keeps me humble in this career, like when I go out to conventions, is I think, every time someone plays a game, or they go to a panel, or they tune in for an interview on Twitch, they are choosing to spend their time in a very specific way.
Right.
And so the least that I can do is to try and leave them feeling like they spent their time wisely. If they come to a
Mm.
panel of mine, I want them to leave feeling like I made the right choice going to this panel instead of, going to a different panel or going back to the hotel and napping or something like that. And if they're going to listen to my performance in a game, if I'm going to be the English voice for a character until further notice, I want them to leave feeling like my experience with this game or my knowledge of this character has been enhanced by this vocal performance.
Yeah.
Um, and so I kind of use that fear to propel me. I go, hey, this is your chance to make an impact on this character and on this game. Don't half-ass it. Don't phone it in. Don't do, what you think is good enough. Go for something that will stick for all the right reasons. So I appreciate that you guys enjoyed it so much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, that's why I love running a show like this. Is we get to kind of in that, like we joked about the Lord of the Rings extras way, kind of get a way to chat with you guys and an opportunity for you to talk about it and kind of share with us your experience. So it's cool. And that's been one of the joys for me is I've been getting to know my fellow content creators who are into this space, kind of like Baby Seal in the chat here. Been getting to know the actors and the performance. And it's just what a good community. And I mean that with the fans and the people on the inside and in between. It's just
right.
What a great fan base and culture in general.
I say it often. If companies felt like they didn't need to include English dubs in order to sell their game, they wouldn't do it because that is a massive part of the budget at times.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason why they're including it is because they feel like it's necessary or you guys request it or demand it. So thank you guys for making my job possible to exist in the first place.
Absolutely. Oh, it's a pleasure. And like I said, we love hearing from your side of the story as well. So thank you. Next question. With Rivali and Zelda, we got to see your wonderful portrayal of a very, very proud character, right? Very literally, kind of proud stature and everything. Yet, even though his pride was quite strong, Rivali is not an evil character, right? With Nero, he seemed to have a lot of similar pride for deep ground in his brother Vice. Do you see any similarities between the two characters?
There are similarities in the fact that they see challenges as something to be overcome. The same way that I mentioned that Nero, didn't let himself lose to the darkness. Rivali obviously was very focused on mastering a skill that would let him get the upper hand on Ganon.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think they differ, however, is that Rivali was more proactively focused, where he's like, I need to protect the princess, I need to protect the kingdom, I'm going to take this very seriously, I am going to teach myself how to defend this kingdom. I will become better in order to protect. Nero was more reactive, where he goes, I am going to become better in order to survive. So that is where I think the paths diverge most heavily.
That's a great point. Yeah, but you're right about the challenge thing. That's a really good point. But yeah, I think Nero perhaps not so wholesome in his reasons for getting stronger as Rivali, even though Rivali is kind of a jerk to Link because he wants that Master Sword for himself, right?
I think it's reasonable. You spend all this time mastering a skill, and then this dude just comes in, hasn't even proven himself,
shows
and
up.
all of a sudden he's your superior.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, Rivali, I think he's a really underrated character because he's such a. It's funny because he literally doesn't look like a human, right? But he's such a human character in that way that we love. And Zelda's a very fairy tale story, right? So we have all these kind of like larger than life heroic figures. Like Link is just this like hero from a different age, almost like from Greek mythology. We have Zelda, this pure princess with these pure divine powers and everything, and these characters. But then you have Rivali, who's so human. Like we'd like to think that none of us would feel that, but in a very human way, I think a lot of it, more than we think, than we'd like to admit, would probably be similar to Rivali and his reaction to Link, right? And Aaliyah, yeah, it's my girlfriend in chat. She has just started recently. I've been begging her to play Breath of the Wild, so she's enjoying it. Yeah. I've really been loving it. Really appreciate it. Awesome. So, next question. As we said before, Nero, larger than life. His power, his mentality, his attitude. And yet it works due to the world building and your performance. How do you go about bringing someone with such a massive presence to life, but still grounding him in a believable reality? We touched on this a little bit, but again, how do you find that balance of I'm summoning darkness, from the void and absorbing people's life forces and stuff, is making it so we all saw that and we're just terrified. Like, how do you do that?
It seems like it'd be complex, but it's really as simple as not thinking about how would I react to it. It's how would Nero react to it.
Mm.
It's part of the process of becoming a character. Now, I don't mean to say like, when I perform a character, I'm going to bring a little myself into them. There's going to be some aspect of me that bleeds over into how they exhibit themselves. But it can be really easy if I just ask myself, well, how would this person do it? How would they respond? And how can I best emulate that? So when I ask, Nero seems very in control of the darkness. So how would he respond to summoning these dark tendrils? Well, to me, it might be like, holy crap, I've got all this power. To Nero, it's a Tuesday, So
Yeah, true.
when you think about it that way, it kind of really helps narrow down. Like one of the things that they'll teach you in workshops is, you look at a line, I can't believe you did this for me, or I can't believe you've done this. Okay, well, there's 20 different ways you can say that. Is
Right.
it out of happiness? Is it out of anger? Is it out of despair? Is it out of fear? So the first thing you'll do is you ask, what's the context? Why is this character saying this? How do they feel about it? And just by getting those answers, you can probably narrow it down to like maybe 2 or 3 realistic ways that you would deliver that line based on that. And then you just play around with those options until you find one that works.
That's great. That's a great answer too. So you said this earlier, FF7. I mean, it's such an established universe, such an established world, an iconic world that is like people just worship this place. There's so many millions of fans and the characters. Did you feel any apprehension stepping into those shoes of such a legendary world, and adding your own voice to that massive cast already?
Like I said, outside of the initial awareness, I think it was almost easier now that I had been a part of Breath of the Wild, because at
same
this
thing.
point,
Yeah.
if you voice 3 major characters in a game that's never had canon voice acting before and you manage to make that not suck, it's a little bit easier to be part of an established franchise that's already had voice acting for plenty of its games.
That's true.
And just be like, hey, just try not to be the bad note on an otherwise good game. But there's lots of reasons that you can build confidence. You remind yourself you got cast, and with a game this big, there's probably hundreds, if not potentially 1,000 other people that auditioned for that role, but you were the one they picked. So there's some reason for that. You've got a director who wants you to succeed. You've already got some experience with the character based on your research. So just have faith in yourself and be willing to take direction and see where it goes from there.
Love it. Great answer. And that's a good point. I mean, Zelda is just as, iconic as far as the gaming. There's only a few game franchises that have that level of intensity on here. And your call, Sean, if you want to take Baby Seal's question there, with your how comfortable you are in your psychology diagnosis.
I actually don't think I'm comfortable answering that.
That's fine.
Just because I don't like the idea that I'm trying to think of the word. When I tie back to the fact that, for all we know, Nero may have done this as a result of wanting to survive, I don't like the idea of attributing a necessary behavior that he had to exhibit in order to not perish to a mental illness. It's not exactly something that he wanted to undergo. Potentially, it may have been something that was forced on him. And to write it off as a mental illness or as a mental disability is, I think, unfair to the character and already kind of writes them off as a fringe case before we've had a chance to experience, maybe they never lost that part of themselves. Maybe they never experienced any detriment to their mental ability. Maybe they overcame all of those challenges and we haven't given them the chance to prove themselves before we've just written them off. So
that's a great answer. Yeah. That's a great answer. And also a lot of it could have been too, I mean, it kind of is, I guess, without question. I don't know if abuse is the word, but man, I mean, these guys were taken advantage of in some way, I'm sure, along the way, even if they did volunteer at some point or whatever. Like, it's not a nice story that they've lived through. Right.
And even then, you know what? I'm even going to backtrack a bit and say I feel bad about saying, written them off in terms of labeling a mental illness, because mental illness does not even mean something is wrong with somebody necessarily.
Oh, of course.
There are plenty of cases where we have labeled people with mental illnesses because of scientific things we didn't yet understand.
Yeah, true.
And it was just easier to pigeonhole them into a specific subset and say, oh, they've got this, and that's why they're acting this way. So I apologize. I hope I didn't offend anyone with my initial answer, but that's why I don't feel comfortable answering that sort of thing. I want to learn more about why he is the way he is and whether it even matters in the end or if it's something that he accomplished as an individual.
Right. No, great answer. Great answer, honestly. One of the most interesting and intriguing moments in episode intermission for me was Nero's relationship with Scarlett, another character who benefited greatly from this new chapter. I thought really developed her. We noticed that Nero actually respects her as his superior and follows her orders, which was super surprising to me since he's incredibly like otherworldly strong, but also makes
Right.
sense if Deep Ground is a real military organization. He has to answer to his superiors. But I think it
Right.
also might show Scarlett may be a lot stronger than we initially thought. I mean, for him to respect her, he seems to respect her. He's not like begrudgingly following her orders. So,
She may be a lot stronger, but she also may be much more respectful. Like I
mm,
don't know much about Scarlett, so I'm talking out of my butt right now.
mhm.
But if she views him as even as his superior, if she views him as another ally towards a goal rather than a unit that she can utilize to further her own goals, then I can see where Nero might recognize that and say, we're working towards the same goal, but you're letting me do it the way that I want to do it. So I see no reason to disrespect you. It's not
Yeah,
it's not
yeah, I like
it's
that.
not necessarily it's not a out of fear, it's respect out of equality, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really cool. I was going to ask you, like, how do you think he feels about like the non deep ground side of Shinra and Scarlet? But I love that because, yeah, what you say is true because she doesn't talk down to Nero too, is what I noticed.
No.
And I said that I think it was a great performance as well with Scarlet. Is she's very big, she's like talking down to Yuffie, being like essentially racist and everything, very kind of like, look at me, I have a lot of power. But then when she's alone with Nero, she has this weird kind of like vulnerability. You can tell she's actually upset, and she says just like kind of very quietly, "Make them suffer." She's
Which
not
almost makes me
being
wonder,
big.
what does she potentially have in common with him?
Mm,
Who, once we learn more about Scarlet, what if we end up back at those 4 steps? Who does she think she is? Who is she actually? How did she respond to that? And who does she decide to become? And we may end up seeing a lot of similar story beats between her and Nero.
yeah,
And maybe that's why they find a kinship with each other.
absolutely. And that again, that's what's so cool about this project is you can tell it really is just this sort of story revision where they're going back, and they said it the other day in an interview. They're able to combine all of these aspects, all these different stories together, and make it sort of the optimal story. Finally, make it a cohesive story. Because again, Nero isn't very separate from the original, but now he's a part of it. He's cemented in this, but it wasn't jarring. And what a cool way to say, guess who would have interacted? Scarlett and Nero. How are these characters going to talk to each other? And I think it's just great. It's another sign of how the painstaking care they put into this, because they don't need to do that. They don't need to give us that, as I always
Yeah.
say, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's fantastic.
So,
Have you ever, or have you heard, or do you have any? You talked about this a little bit earlier, sort of like big brain or small brain theories about Nero, what he did with Sonon, what's he going to do with Sonon in the future, and everything. Us fans have
right.
run wild with theories and ideas. What do you think? Have you heard any crazy ones?
Wait, like theories about where we go from here?
Yeah. Is Nero going to be in it? What's the deal with Sonon? Did he take him? Like, did he take his body?
I
What's he going
don't
to do?
know. I like what I've said to people is I think probably what makes his scene the most impactful is that he
Yeah.
kills everyone. Like
Yes.
he doesn't spare the scientists, he doesn't spare Sonon, he just kills everyone.
Yeah.
And then he gone.
Yeah.
And
True.
the scariest part about that is with a character like Nero, the fact that he's gone means he could come back at any point.
Yes.
And to the best of our knowledge, he considers himself a free agent. Like he's gonna do whatever he wants, and whether he wants revenge against people who don't understand him, whether he wants revenge against the people that made him into who he is, whether he just wants to continue destroying things to see if that's who he wants to be going forward. We don't know. And what we fear most is that which we don't know. So,
Yeah.
imagine, if you will, that you're in the room and it's just you in the room,
Right.
and you hear a knock from the other side of the door.
Yeah.
And you open the door and there's nothing. but there could be something, and you know there's something because there's something at the end of that hallway that made it in the dark, completely encased by darkness, and you can't see it yet. And that's why you're as afraid as you are right now. Nero is whatever the hell that thing is encased by darkness.
Yes.
And you don't know what it is yet, and that's why you're scared shitless.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's a good way to put his sort of possible appearance. Whatever it is in the future, if he shows up, it's going to be probably exactly what he just described. Like, it's not going to be a, hi, my name is Nero.
Nero and by extension Vice, to my knowledge, are one of the only things that nobody has control over right now, or has no plan regarding. Like, sure, Cloud and Barrett and Tifa are like, this is a suicide mission, we're probably going to die, but they know what they plan on trying to do. Then you look at Nero and you go, what are you going to do about him?
It's true. Yeah, what do you do about Nero? He's like, how do you kill him? And that's the thing is, we had that brief moment where we're like, we got him. And then you realize, we didn't get him. Not at all.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing about him, is essentially his body can like dissipate and then come back. And so it's very interesting. So the notion of the unknown. Yeah. The cinematic language of action scenes.
So fun.
Is one of our favorite topics to dissect on the channel. And I've experienced shooting many of my own. For such physical sections of the game, do you bring physicality in the booth? Do you kind of move a lot?
I'm so much.
Yeah,
I'm so much a method actor.
Yeah, talk to us about it. What are you doing in the booth during those like battle scenes and stuff?
Well, probably the most common is, if he was summoning tendrils, I would like hold my hands up like I was bringing something up from the ground. I did ask them if they wanted me to keep the mask on so that it would sound like he was talking through a mask. They said, no, we'll take care of any of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of it can just be expressions, if he's amused by something the character does, then I'll just have that kind of that side smirk where it's like, this is amusing to me, something like that.
Yeah.
Or if he's relishing when he talks about Vice, the pain, then it'll turn into a broader grin. You can see it happening as I'm talking on stream.
Yeah.
But just kind of letting yourself just, I hate to do this because I swear to God, someone's gonna put this on like an Ahegao shirt. But like when he talks about how good it feels, just kind of letting your eyes roll into the back of your head as you're talking. Like, if you embrace it, if you embody it, it's gonna make it sound more genuine just by association.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I've always been the person who tends to do that in the booth.
That's amazing. Yeah. And do you have you studied? I guess that's the wrong question. How familiar are you? Have any experience acting for the camera? Because that sort of facial control and everything comes from that. But
Not
I think,
a lot.
as you said,
Not
it comes out naturally, even in voice. I find.
Yeah, not a lot. I don't really have any live action experience. I have some theater experience, but
there you go, theater. Yeah.
I don't really have an experience with playing to a camera. And I guess maybe sometimes I'll assume that I'm always being watched, but it's not really. I wouldn't say it's really even something that sits in my head. When I'm in there to be this character, and this character doesn't. The only thing they care about is who's in the scene with them, who they're talking to, what their point is, and anything superfluous to that, anything regarding like that I'm going to be watched by people or I'm going to be played by people, doesn't matter. In that moment, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. This character leaves a lot of blank, opaque space for our imaginations to fill in the gaps of his personality and his daily life. How do you think Nero starts his day? Like, what does this guy's life look like? Like,
honestly. You know that triangle of kids screaming, "We want McDonald's, we want McDonald's." The person who says, "We have McDonald's at home," and the person who goes to the drive-thru, orders a black coffee, and then leaves.
Yeah.
Nero is the one who destroys the McDonald's, spares a single cup of hot coffee from the rubble of the McDonald's, brings it to him, takes a sip, and goes, "Too cold."
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, it's hilarious because it's like, how does this guy live? Like, what is he doing? Because he was kind of asleep in this containing unit, like when we found him at the beginning of this thing. So I'm always so curious. What is his daily life? Seems like he hadn't seen Vice in a while too. It's very interesting. All these kind of gaps.
I don't know. This is one of those cases where I want to learn more about the character. I want to know what his interests were. I want to know what kind of person he was, if he even existed, before he became the Nero that we know him as. Like, is there any remnant of that is still in him? And if there is, does he constantly try to suppress it, or is he trying to find permission to go back to that? You know,
That's a good point.
there's a whole lot that Remake has opened up for, and I think there's a potential, maybe not a guarantee, but a potential for characters that previously had only one note to now have a different side of them that we see.
Love it. Love it.
Also,
Sephiroth.
I'm going to say I'm probably, if you got like one or two more questions that you want to throw out, I'm happy to answer those, but I do want to make sure that I give myself some chance to rest, because it does look like they're going to keep my sessions for the next 2 days, so I have to try really hard not to have to cancel them.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll come to the end soon. Let me see what I've got left here, and we'll pick the best ones for you. It's intriguing relationships. Favorite is a short one, at least. Favorite Nero line. What would you say?
Oh man, hold on. I know it's going to be in one of these top quotes, so I just need to.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Bring up a page. Da, 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 da. Where are these quotes? It was the one where he's like, how dare they think this of my vice? They honestly should know better. Something.
Oh,
One
yeah,
of those.
yeah. That was a great. Yeah, I know what you mean. That was great.
I just really liked that one line shows both his kinship with Vice, his respect for his brother,
Yeah.
and his dismissal of the people that made him who he is. Like, Shinra is or the people responsible made him have these powers, and he doesn't give one flying flip about the fact that they made him this powerful. It's like, all right, well, good job, you succeeded, but I don't owe you squat, So
Yeah.
I there's a lot of exposition behind that one line.
Oh, absolutely. So as we said earlier, we've had other cast members like Austin Lee Matthews, Erica Lindbeck on the show, and they've commemorated their time here by saying a soundbite in character that we can use and immortalize on the stream to shout you guys out. So is there something you could say or you'd like to say as Nero that we could use for, say, I don't know, something about, we call the community the philosophers, something you could say to me that we could use? What do you think? What can we do for Nero?
A lot of people have been asking me what game I've been playing recently, and I would have to say I've been really addicted to this game called Deltarune. There's a certain lyric that always sticks in my brain, and I'd like to share it with you. And it goes, "Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark."
That's great. That's great. Oh, yeah, so Sephiroth says it. Our channel slogan is "Cowards Die First." Would you say that as Nero? Actually, perfect for Nero.
I think he would agree with it. No. The quote that they say is "Cowards die first."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of this like "be brave," call to action we use on the channel. Like you're afraid to do something. No, cowards die first.
The gears are turning right now.
Okay.
I can't. I'm trying to make this sound super edgy, and I can't, because I wanted to flip it and say "cowards die last," and the reason why Nero would say that is because he would make sure that the people who were cowardly enough to try and do this to him would be the last ones to die, just so that they'd have no one to turn to, they'd have no one to pray to, they'd have no one to rely on. They would be the last ones. But I'm trying to think of how he would say that meaningfully. No, you know what? That does work. He would say "cowards die last," because he doesn't plan on dying. He's going to survive. So he would say, no, the cowards don't die first. The cowards die last. And that's because I want them to be the ones to relish in their fear more than anybody else. I want them to be the most alone.
Wow, that's intense. I like that. That's really intense, and I agree. Yeah, he probably would say that. Not today.
Like, yeah. Imagine being a coward, or at least in Nero's eyes, being a coward, and having Nero tell you, "It's just you and me, and there's nobody else." and I'm going to be the one leaving this alive.
Yeah.
Imagine having the mentality of a coward and having that said with so much conviction that your own mind knows it's true.
That's terrifying. Yeah, he would do that. He loves the mind games too. He loves stuff like that. Great answer. Great answer. Thank you for that. We'll definitely throw that out. That's a great quote. I think that last actually. Did he convert the channel slogan? He's changed the channel slogan.
I don't know. Maybe it depends on the character. Maybe Vice says cowards die first. If you're not going to put up a good fight, then I'm going to just slaughter you. And then Nero is the half that goes cowards die last. If you make me or my brother suffer, I will make sure that your suffering is 100-fold.
Oh, I like that. That's good. All the awesome answers here from Sean. So as we're going to wrap up, because he's to preserve his voice, guys. Is there any other projects that you'd like to talk about and promote while you're here?
I'm going to tell people to please consider following my Twitter, because that is where all of the big announcements happen as soon as they can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to give any details out because I don't want to spoil it or give people clues. All I'm going to say is I really think it's worth your while to start following my Twitter, because there is some super cool stuff coming down the pipeline that I cannot wait to get to talk about. In addition, this is the perfect timing.
What do we got?
I had to actually postpone a stream because I forgot to actually order the prints. But
oh my god,
they arrived about 15 minutes before this interview.
No way.
I have 2 prints of Nero available. We've got that one.
Amazing.
I've got
yes,
this one.
Oh, that's so cool.
There is about, I believe there's 50 prints total between these two, 25 of each, but I've got about 12 orders already placed in for the stream that I will be doing this Saturday on Streamily. So,
where can people get those?
If you would like to be notified when the shop opens back up, when you can start ordering these, I would strongly consider following my Twitter, because I would say sometime tomorrow, after I make another big announcement, I am going to open the shop back up, and these will be available for ordering up until Saturday when I'm signing them. And then on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, I will be signing... Oh, are we all good?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I will be signing all of the orders live on stream. So you can see me write your name, your specific message that you would like. Eventually, you will be at streamily.com/sonicmega. But it's not open right now. It's closed until tomorrow. But keep tabs on my Twitter. If you forget, you can still tune in on Saturday because the shop will be open then. If they're still in stock, you can get some. And I will sign them live on stream, and then they'll get physically mailed out to you.
Awesome. So, guys, you heard it here. There's some stuff coming, too, that you can't even say. Follow the Twitter. And again, I don't know if we can grab that link. If anybody wants to grab that and throw in the chat, or Sean, you can feel free to type in chat if you're in chat.
Yeah, there's twitter.com/sonicmega. And then my store that will be able to purchase the prints from is, it's not sent. It's streamily.com/sonicmega.
Here, I'll do the Twitter link for you. Twitter.com/sonicmega.
And what I will say is, if you guys are interested in getting those prints, order them sooner rather than later, because I've only got 25 of each.
Yes.
And if one of them sells out, I would rather know ahead of time so I can get my agent to overnight me additional prints. I don't want anyone to be left behind that would like a print.
Yeah, guys, hop on it quick. If you want one, do it like now.
And just keep in mind, like, I have a very lucrative, opportunistic career. My opinion of you will not change whether or not you decide to get a print. If you have your own stuff that you would like to send to me, like a copy of Final Fantasy VII, I'm more than happy to sign it. I won't charge you for it. All I ask is that you cover the shipping to get it to me and for me to send it back. So
there you go. That's incredibly generous. Yeah, I would hop on this stuff, guys. Again, like with these sort of new projects he's talking about, you're going to want to be the first one to get in there. It sounds like there's some crazy stuff in the pipeline. But okay, I was just going to ask you, what's the best place to find you? So it sounds like Twitter. And guys, don't forget, Sean streams here on Twitch. And
yes.
I can't wait to stop by myself.
It's been very off and on right now just because of my vocal health. But I normally stream Thursday through Tuesday. Right now, we're splitting our time between Trails of Cold Steel 4, Metopia, and Monster Hunter Stories 2. We also do multiplayer Mondays every Monday, where I'll do a game like Tetris 99 or Smash Brothers or Among Us, where the whole community can come in. If you guys are interested in joining my Discord, if I may share that,
Oh, absolutely. I can type it
is
too because it might not
no,
let
we
you
got
send a
it. It
link.
worked. It worked. It's a wonderful community. You know, you don't have to be active. You can just join and lurk and read posts. It's cool. But yeah, I'd be happy to have you guys there. I'm already partnered on Twitch, so I'm not worried about numbers. You know, Twitch is just my way of interacting with my community. I make money from it because I'm a partner, but I'm not in it to make money, if that makes sense.
That's awesome.
I just want to remind you guys that I'm a human being like anybody else. I'm passionate about games. I like being able to bridge that gap between myself as a professional and you guys as the community. And I hope I'll get to see you around sometime.
Amazing. I was just going to ask that too. Is there anything you have to say to the people here who just love your work and adore what you've been doing?
Thank you. Honestly,
yeah.
The support that I've gotten from folks and the passion has been a large part of what's helped my career grow over the years. And I cannot put into enough words how grateful I am to be doing this full time, and the fact that I was able to do it during the pandemic. And the least that I can do to show my appreciation for that is to just keep giving my all on every project that I do. So I hope that, you know, whether it's a project I've already done or one that I announce in the near future, I hope that you keep finding reasons to love what I do and keep wanting to support my growth.
Love that. Love that, absolutely. So as we wrap here, I'm going to wrap up in just a moment. We're going to raid...
I want more.
Thanks for the bits. We're going to raid Smokaloke, who's a great streamer. You may have heard of him. He's a lot of fun, and he plays a variety of games. Definitely check him out. And that's their raid message right there, Philosopher's Raid. So I'm going to leave you guys with Smokaloke. And thank you so much again, Sean. I'll end the stream in a second, and we can...
Can I suggest a raid phrase?
Oh, absolutely. What do you got?
I want to do one based on Nero where he goes, "This stream has me in ecstasy."
Do it. Copy that over, guys. Let's get in there for Smokaloke. And guys, if you're over on the YouTube side, so we'll put this on YouTube as well, Sean. Guys, check out Sean over here, and please make sure to subscribe to YouTube. We're almost at 10K subs here on my second channel, so make sure to check it out. And Sean, as you heard earlier, is all over the place with exciting news on Twitter and amazing streams over here on Twitch. So thank you so much, Sean.
Please stay tuned. You guys are not ready. You're not ready for what's coming down.
Awesome. Absolutely love that. All right, guys, enjoy the raid with Smokaloke. I leave you there. Have a good night, friends.
Take care.
All right, Sean, we are... Let's confirm here. We are...
Oh, and he's